Hey listeners, be sure to check out slipdisc.com for the latest inside information on classical music now. Grammy-nominated composer, flutist, and vocalist Nathalie Joachim is one of today's most dynamic and innovative musical forces. Her compositions mesmerize audiences, weaving together classical, pop, electronic, and world music influences into a breathtaking tapestry of sound. With a musical palette this vast, it makes sense that she got hooked on music pretty early.
The way that I loved music was bizarre. The kids who played in band liked music, like playing a sport or something that you can do with your friends, but I loved music. Couldn't live without it, and any moment that I could be making music, I was doing it.
You're listening to Speaking Soundly, a backstage pass to today's biggest stars of the music world. I'm your host, David Krause, principal trumpet of the Metropolitan Opera. During each episode, you'll hear me speak with inspiring performers about their creative process and the personal journey that led them to the stage. I'm a big fan of your compositions and your performances, and I know you mostly probably through your group Flutronics, which combines the sound of flutes, voice, and electronic music to create this amazingly varied and original sound. But I want to talk to you now about a project you did called Fanm, which translates into the Women of Haiti. What inspired you specifically not only to take on this huge project, but to explore your own personal connection to the music of Haiti?
It came at a moment where my grandmother had just passed away, and that was a really important relationship for me, and one that sort of rooted me in Haiti in a really important way. This whole process for me was about discovery in such beautiful ways, but it allowed me to become a deeper listener. It allowed me to engage with story, which was really beautiful and valuable, obviously.
And you kind of dove headfirst into this project without really having a sense of what the project was going to be, right? I mean, like, was the album the thing, or did it kind of blossom once you were in Haiti being exposed to this wonderful music?
It's true that when I was contacted by Kate Nordstrom from Liquid Music, who commissioned the work, I had not yet had exactly this idea. I thought that it might be a beautiful opportunity for me to commemorate the lives and the work of Haitian women. But it was just a small notion of an idea. It wasn't fully formed in any way. And it was really her encouragement that said, you know, this seems like a path that you haven't gone down, and maybe it would be an interesting one. So maybe let's make space for you to do that. But, you know, at the time, I even had said to her, I wasn't sure if I would find anything at all. I wasn't sure if it would become something interesting at all. I just thought it might be there were little grains of interest there that seemed like they could blossom into something much more beautiful. I did not have any idea what awaited me.
So what was the first thing that you heard that really did blossom into something? What did it sound like?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many kind of life-changing moments along the way. The moment that I cite the most often was recording the girls' choir in my community's small church, which I almost didn't do. I really just went to the church service to support my cousin who had been helping prepare the children's choir to sing in church that weekend. And she said, oh, I don't know, you know, this is what I've been doing. So if you want to come hang out and, you know, hear what I've been doing music-wise with the kids. And I started to leave home and just didn't have my recorder. I was just walking to the church. It's just steps from our farm. And my dad was like, oh, you're not going to bring your recorder? And I was like, I mean, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know that, like, this children's choir, which is a very fancy name for them. You know, it's just the kids in our village. And he was like, well, you never know. And he was really right, because, like, there was something really beautiful about seeing a people who were really sort of forced into this type of worship, right? That Catholicism was a tool of colonialism, And it was something that we adopted for survival. It wasn't a choice. It was certainly forced upon us. And what I heard musically, though, in that space was really beautiful to hear the roots of centuries of music that led to our survival, music that led to our freedom, music that has for a very long time contributed to our preservation of self and spirit. And that moment, I think it was, for me, probably the first time that I ever really went to church in a holistic sense, where I really felt and understood spiritually what was happening in that space to be something bigger than all of us. And I think maybe I cite that most often because it was then that the music really came to me. It was like I suddenly heard actually what I was supposed to be making, and the music came quite quickly after that.
When inspiration strikes, and as you said, the music comes quickly, it must be great, but is it also challenging just to keep things organized? Like when you compose, what's your workflow like? Is it very regimented?
Oh, it depends on the day. It depends on what's happening in my life. Right now, I've sort of taken to becoming a really early morning composer. I find myself rising at 5 a.m. and the first thing that I do is just write. I'll write for several hours before doing anything else, really, and it's a beautiful thing because the world is quite quiet at that hour, all around, no messages, no phone calls, no emails, no sounds outside, a very, very sort of serene moment in time. And in some way has become a little bit of a meditative practice, right? Like a way of sort of caring for myself first in the day. And that feels really, really good to me and has been able to be recreated just about anywhere. My whole studio is in flux and I've been touring a lot, and that can be challenging. Sometimes your inspiration is just not in a hotel in the middle of Wisconsin or something, or wherever you find yourself on tour. It can be hard, but I have found that this new ritual of having quiet space first thing in the day to really be able to just freely be a creative being has become my rock in terms of allowing me to move forward, and lots of deadlines, and allowing me to really feel like I am rooted in my creativity in the day.
You're a flautist and you grew up in New York City studying the flute. I have a question for you as a trumpet player to a flute player. When I was in grade school, I think part of the reason why I chose my instrument is because there were only 6 or 7 of them, but it seemed like there were as many flutists in a band as there were violins in an orchestra. It was just a sea of flute players, and they all sounded really good. So when you're a young flutist in grade school or high school, did you ever find yourself wanting to break out of that pack or somehow distinguish yourself from everybody else?
No, I didn't. I have funny stories I could tell about that, but I did start playing flute in 4th grade, like a lot of other people who are introduced to band instruments in elementary school. I took to it very quickly, and my band director at the time also her primary instrument was flute, and so she noticed right away that this kid is definitely is going to sort of test out a band here in a second. So let's figure out
This was in the 4th grade?
Yeah.
That young? Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so she recommended to my parents that I take private lessons. And they were like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not so sure about that. And she was like, oh, well, okay, how about this? I'll just give her, she's really advancing a lot. So I'll give her some private lessons during lunch. If she can just eat her lunch really quickly. And then for the last 20 minutes of lunch, I'll give her her own lessons, which she did. And I excelled very quickly from that. And then Juilliard at that time had just begun their music advancement program, which was sort of in response to a lot of public schools cutting music out of their programs in the tri-state area. And so I took that audition. I had only really been playing the flute for 3 or 4 months when I took that audition. And I got in. And so I started going to Juilliard the following fall. And that was a pretty big leap, you know? And so I actually sort of bypassed this band land in a kind of funny way, though I was like aware of it. But I excelled really, really quickly, and then sort of progressed very quickly through all of Juilliard's programs, obviously.
Right. Actually, we have that in common in that we both attended the high school Saturday Juilliard pre-college program and then continued on to Juilliard at the college level. Same school for me, two very different experiences, though. Like in high school, I didn't feel that pressure cooker that the college can feel like. In high school, it was the best experience. I loved Saturdays. I found my people. It was fun. Was it the same for you?
I loved it. I really did. I really did. You know, the way that I loved music was bizarre. Like the kids who played in band at my regular school liked music. They liked it. It was fun. It's like being, you know, like playing a sport or something, like something that you can do with your friends. But I loved music. Like music was my first true love, I really believe, you know. Couldn't live without it, and like lived and breathed every moment, and any moment that I could be making music, I was doing it. And so to find myself suddenly in an environment with all of these other little people who felt exactly the same way about music as I did was like amazing. It was amazing because it took me from being this like weird nerd at school to being like, oh my gosh, I can talk to these people about like all of the music that I love all day long, and I'm learning about it, and it's like coming out of my pores, and I'm running across the street to Tower Records, and I'm like devouring music at all, like in every hour of the day. And like Saturday is this like magical moment in my life that I look forward to all week long. And none of it felt competitive, because I think that I was also unaware of, you know, like my family didn't come from these traditions of like, even my parents immigrated to this country. They didn't even understand what classical music was. Even going to Juilliard, like it had to be explained to them that that was like a big deal. They're like, nobody in Haiti even knows what Juilliard is. Like nobody's ever heard of this school before. This is not a big deal where we come from.
You know, it's not such a bad thing. I just want to interrupt and tell you about my pre-college audition. I remember my mom there with me on the 5th floor waiting outside the trumpet audition room. I'm warming up and I look over to see my mom is taking apart a Juilliard music stand. Back then, all the stands had Juilliard spray painted on it. She said, David, I'm taking this as a memento. So she's trying to put the stand into her bag. And I go, why? She goes, well, in case you don't get in, we might never be in the building again.
I love your mom for this. I love your mom for this. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is that like having that kind of pressure on you when you're trying to take an audition isn't ideal. Maybe it's better that your parents were like not that invested in it.
Yeah, they had no clue. And I think they also were like, it's funny because, you know, music is such a huge part of Haitian culture. Like I have family members in Haiti who to this day are still like, people pay you to do this? Like music is how our people have survived for centuries. Like everyone's a musician. That's not special. And I'm like, yes, guys, this is my actual job. I am actually world renowned for doing this. I do get paid to do this. And they're like, it's very strange. It's strange that's like, that anyone thinks that, because we think you're just normal. And they're not wrong, you know, they're not wrong. But it was like, even, you know, it took my teachers at these institutions to really impose upon my parents, like going back to that story of the band teacher being like, she's really good. And my parents were like, really? Because, you know, we think she's probably just normal. And she's like, no, I think she needs private lessons. They're like, okay, I mean, if you say so, but I don't really know. So none of it felt competitive to me, even because I didn't understand, right? I didn't understand like even what was happening. I just enjoyed it. Like I played my first concerto with orchestra at Avery Fisher Hall.
How old were you?
I was 11.
11 years old and you're standing in front of a professional orchestra playing a concerto in Lincoln Center. That must have been overwhelming. What was that experience like?
I mean, that was maybe also like one of the first moments that I was like, oh, I think I'm experiencing this in a different way. Because, I'm 11 years old. My mom has no idea. She didn't grow up going to the symphony or anything like that. She has no idea. And it was clear that it was like, wait, she like played this piece really well. So now she gets to play it on this stage. She's got to come and she's got to wear a dress for the concert. And so I came dressed as like an 11-year-old going to church or something, like I came in a regular little dress that any old 11-year-old might wear for a regular special occasion. And I remember that the other girls had the gowns and had like all of the etiquette down and had all of the stuff. And here I was with my little velvet dress, like a Christmas dress. I'm sure my mom got it at like Sears or something, like nothing fancy about it. And so that was maybe also the first time that I realized like, oh, I think that like these people are like in it to win it. And I'm just like I'm happy to be here. I'm just happy to be here. And so, it was a fun thing for me. And it never has become a competitive thing for me. I think that that's actually like a blessing that I've maintained that spirit of I am just happy to be here. Like it's the thing that I love doing the most. I loved being able to sort of find my tribe in this like spirited, childlike way, that I really was just excited to be in musical space and making music with people. And I think that that's still true of me on stage today.
You mentioned going to Tower Records, which I want to get to because that place was so important to me. It was this sanctuary and a tremendous musical resource. I'm assuming it was the same for you?
Unmatched. I mean, it was a huge part of my music education and understanding. It completely shaped and stretched my ear in ways that would not have been able to happen otherwise. And Tower Records was really the first place where I was like, all right, I'm saving up my little allowance money and I'm going to get my records, like to really like invest in music and to have your flute lesson and then run over and like listen to an album and then run back and like have your chamber music class and your orchestra rehearsal and then like run back and like listen to that album one more time and then run back and have your theory class. Like that was my habit on Saturdays. And so huge. That place was huge to me. It was heartbreaking when it finally shut down for me, and to lose those brick and mortar stores. It's overwhelming now to have, like I don't even think people listen to albums. Maybe not until like, a few exceptions. Like I know people have been listening to Beyonce's recent album all the way through. It's designed to be listened to in that way. And I shout out to her for giving us that. I'm grateful for Beyonce for lots of reasons, but I'm grateful to her for creating a record that sort of forces us, even in clubs, like that's unheard of now, that like in clubs, not that I've been to a club, but from what I hear, that they're really playing, like people are dancing to that record from beginning to end. That's powerful. To bring that back is like awesome.
Well, I gotta say, it's been really inspiring for me to hear you speak so passionately about all kinds of music, whether it's a Beyonce album playing in a club or a choir of children singing in a church in Haiti. You really point to the connection that music can make between people, and it sounds like you don't take your role as a performer and a composer for granted.
Absolutely. I mean, the value of this social contract that we are so lucky to participate in as artists, right? As performing artists, that not only are we offered an opportunity to get on stage with people, some who we may have known our whole lives, some who we may have just met a few days before or even that day, and that our unspoken agreement with one another is that in this next 40 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it is, we are going to give all of ourselves to make something so beautiful and transcendent, and that we're all committed to doing that in the fullest way possible. And that the audience is a part of that contract too, that they actually are offering of themselves to participate and to receive this piece of beauty in this moment that can't be recreated in any other way at any other time. Like the average human does not get to engage that vulnerably and that openly. And, like how often, it's almost only ever, I think, in a regular, quote unquote, regular person's life, like almost only in like a moment of tragedy. Like you never pass a stranger on the street and your silent agreement is that in this moment, we are just together going to try to create something really beautiful together right now. No matter our differences, no matter if we like each other, we don't like each other, we may never see each other again, but that's what we're going to do. Like that doesn't happen. And there's something really powerful about that.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Speaking Soundly. If you like what you heard, please tell your friends about it. Spread the word. Be sure to follow, rate us, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. To keep up on future episodes, follow us on Instagram at SpeakingSNDLY and visit our website, artfulnarrativesmedia.com. Tune in next week as we hear another inspiring artist speaking soundly.